Let's face it, at some point in time we've all wanted to be the type of person who could wake up at 5 a.m. You begin your perfect morning routine with a cup of coffee, the birds are chirping whilst the sun rises, and all this whilst knowing that you're better than everyone else. Okay, so that might not be the case, but it's definitely what a lot of people online would have you think. They'd say that the reason for their success is largely down to the time that they wake up, and maybe even have you believe that you have to cut down on sleep in order to achieve it too. I've been thinking about sleep a lot lately. A large part of this last year was spent in lockdowns, and so naturally a lot of us came across media channels that talk about productivity and getting more things done, and time again I'd hear people advocate for waking up super early for all the wrong reasons. People who swear by waking up at 5 a.m. are often considered to be somewhat successful at what they do. Now, these people often have valid reasons for waking up early, but at the same time, there's a lot of people out there who preach that waking up early is the reason why they're successful and why you're not. What this really comes down to is simply a confusion between two concepts: correlation, a mutual relationship or connection between two or more things, and causation, the action of causing something. For example, if somebody becomes more and more successful as time goes on, and at the same time they're waking up earlier and earlier as time goes on, that's a correlation. It doesn't necessarily mean that waking up earlier was the reason or cause for their success. As if like you decide to wake up tomorrow at 5 a.m. and Bill Gates surprises you with a call, "Congratulations, Faisal. Welcome to the inner circle." No. Trust me, it doesn't happen. In a lot of cases, people actually wake up earlier as a direct result of being successful first, not the other way around. Because as they work harder, they're likely to get promoted and have to attend earlier and earlier meetings, or they might just wake up during the early hours of the morning in order to free themselves from any distractions. There are plenty of successful people who actually wake up pretty late. They wake up on their own time.
I'm lazy, I wake up at 7, 8, 9, 10 a.m.
Because they know that it's what you do during the hours that you're awake that really makes the difference. Another growing problem is the number of people saying that waking up early is key to increasing the amount of time you have in a day, advising their followers to cut down on sleep in the process. So let's take a minute to talk about something which is much less understood by the general public and even medical professionals. It's about the harmful effects of losing sleep. I'd like to think that the world is getting slightly better at recognizing how essential sleep really is and how it's not a substitute for a longer working day. But do people really know what starts to happen after losing 1 hour, 2 hours of sleep, besides getting tired? I'll be honest with you guys, before reading this book last year, I really didn't know much about the science of sleep. It's not really taught in medical school. Now, whilst there's a lot we don't know about why we sleep, let's talk about what we do know. More specifically, in the context of productivity, does cutting down on sleep have any significant effects? Okay guys, it's super late. I've basically spent a large part of this week looking up some of the scientific literature basically behind what happens when you deprive yourself or actually restrict yourself in sleep and what sort of effects that brings out throughout those subsequent days on how you perform, how you act, how it affects your cognition. Before I break down some of the things I wanted to talk about, I have to say that, number one, I'm not a sleep expert. However, I am a doctor. I am on an academic placement at the moment. And what that basically means for you guys who don't know much about this, medicine world, is that I think I can confidently say that I know how to read a scientific paper. I know how to deconstruct it or critically analyze it, at the very least at the level of this video. So right now I'm looking at this one specific article in particular. It's by Belenki et al., published in 2003, and it's been referenced quite a bit by other authors, so I thought I would check it out. In this study, what they did is they had a group of participants, and first they made everyone sleep at 8 hours a day so that they were well rested and they had a good baseline. And then they split that group of people into 4 different groups. The first slept for 9 hours a day for a week. The second slept 7 hours a day for a week. The third slept 5 hours. The fourth slept 3 hours. And then right at the end, what they did was they allowed everyone to have that 8 hours of sleep again and then measured their response times and things like that in different tests. And there's one specific test which is really interesting. It really caught my attention. It's called the psychomotor vigilance test. Essentially, you put up a screen, you have the participants look at the screen, and there's a little dot which keeps appearing every now and again, and every time it appears, you have to press a button. If you press the button within half a second or 500 milliseconds, You get the point. And the thing is, most people could probably ace it if you were doing it for like 30 seconds or a minute, but these tests often last from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. So what they're trying to do is trying to measure your sustained attention span, which is basically replicating, how we operate during a day, if how we're able to sustain our attention on a specific task for 5-10 minutes or longer. And there's 3 really interesting takeaways from this little experiment that they did. So in the group that had 9 hours of sleep, they stuck with the sort of baseline number of lapses. They didn't really make any mistakes over the course of the 7 days. However, the 7-hour sleep group actually had more lapses than the 9-hour. The 5-hour group had even more, and the 3-hour group had the most. And the second really interesting thing is that it didn't just stay at a sort of fixed level, like, you have 7 hours of sleep and you operate at a fixed level or, a fixed disadvantage. No. Every single day during that week, as long as they maintained that amount of sleep, they actually got worse and worse and worse. Like, the effects were compounding on each other. And the final thing is, once they got back to the rest days where they were allowed to have 8 hours of sleep again, the other groups who were sleep restricted did not return back to the original baseline. Anyway, I am here at 1 a.m. breaking down these papers still. The irony. Now, it's easy to get this message twisted and think that waking up early is unhealthy and overrated. But that's not the message I'm trying to get across. In fact, I wish I was a morning person who could wake up at 5 a.m. The idea that the rest of the world hasn't really woken up yet and so you're less likely to be distracted is really appealing to me, and maybe to a lot of you too. Without all that noise coming into your world through your laptop, your phone, everything just stays a bit more quiet. The more you try and achieve in a day, the more you appreciate silence and finding quiet time to get on with what you need to do. Some people naturally wake up early and others are lucky enough to need less than the average amount of sleep in order to function properly. So if waking up at 5 a.m. comes naturally to you, works for you, or genuinely benefits your lifestyle, then by all means, go for it. But if you find yourself doubting your self-worth or your ability to get things done, all because you can't wake up at 5 a.m., just ask yourself, does it really matter? After all, it's young people who are most impressionable to this sort of advice, and they can easily fall prey to bad advice and bad habits. And so the takeaway is this: if you're trying to create more time in the day through less sleep, you're only cheating yourself. You need that sleep and it will do much more for you than sacrificing it in order to wake up early. I just want you to remember, really think about why you choose to do things, particularly if it's someone else who's trying to get you to do it. Focus on what truly matters, like getting sleep and not falling for false promises. And if you still think that somehow waking up early will help you to achieve more, ask yourself, shouldn't you start by optimizing the rest of your day first? Remember, Bill Gates won't call you if you wake up at 5 a.m. He won't. But if you get your 8 hours of sleep, he might visit you in your dreams. And that means something. I'm also thinking about doing a deep dive on why we sleep as a whole and sort of deconstructing the scientific literature out there, so if that's something you'd like to see, let me know. Also, tell me what you think about 5 a.m. mornings. Have you tried it? Do you recommend it? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Also, before you head off, if you enjoy these topics, I write weekly articles over on my website on self-development, meaningful living, and all things that matter, so check those out. And if you want to be part of my inner tribe who read them first, subscribe to my weekly newsletter, Life Lemons. Otherwise, get a good night's rest, do what matters, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Okay, I'm gonna go sleep. Only joking, it's 6 p.m.